everyone. Welcome back to the Earthbound Survival Guide, the podcast for all disciplines, paths, players, and game masters. With your questers, Josh and Dan, I'm Dan.
I'm Josh.
And on today's podcast, we will be discussing all things thaumaturgical, part 2, because we're going to go back over the Elementalist spells from Magic Deeper Secrets, Circles 1 and 2. So if you have any questions for us, please drop us a line at edsgpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll get back to you on that with Josh's answers for your questions. So I took a look. Yeah, good.
Before we get into that, the day that this episode drops is the day before Gen Con. So if you happen to be listening to this around that time and, close to that time, and you are in the Indianapolis area, come by the booth and say hi.
Absolutely.
I am not likely to be there. Don't think I'm going to be spending much time at the booth this year because we only have so much space and my running games schedule kind of gets in the way of that. But, find me.
Fair. And I will not be there at all. I won't even be in the state of Indiana. So, sorry, can't help you. It's just Josh this year. One of these years, I promise, I will try and make it to Gen Con, knock it off my bucket list, but I can't remember when that ever starts and happens, so I never make plans.
It's generally, at least for the past few years, it's been at the end of July, usually the first weekend in August is when it is.
So next time when you plan, let me know. I'll see what I can do to plan. Anyway. So we're going to break down the Elementalist spells this time from Magic Deeper Secrets, and I did some more prep. I did just a little bit more prep than I did last time. So we can break this down. What do you want me to cover first? How many spells we had? Or
just go through kind of like what we did with the wizard spells.
Fair. Hit you with data. So in the Classic Edition, because it's the tome that compiles all of First Edition spells. Classic Edition, for First Circle, had 12 spells, and Second Circle had 15 spells, kind of a lot. So you ended up with 27 total. So in the 4th Edition Player's Guide, we have 11 First Circle spells for the Elementalist and 6 Second Circle spells. That's only 18. So we've been missing like 9 spells.
I've got a question in regards to this, and maybe you have this as part of your data breakdown.
Kinda.
Elementalist is somewhat unique when it comes to spells because there are some spells where there are 5 versions of the same spell because of the variety of elements.
Fair.
I don't remember. I think it's Second Circle, but Elemental Spear, for example, has 5 versions depending on the element that you use it. Does that factor in at all in either list that you compiled there?
I just went with titles.
Okay.
Of spells. So really, if you have, in the 4th edition, I have them backwards on my screen. In 4th edition, so that's where I started, Resist Element is technically 5 different spells, but I only put down one title of the spell. So really, when we break this stuff down, 4th edition is going to have more variety and more numerous spells because you can do each of the elements that are listed.
Right. And I'm just wondering whether the original version sort of had multiple, was there resist element in Classics that would be the same thing?
Let's just break down First Circle. In Classic Edition, here's what made it to 4th Edition. Air Armor, Crunch Climb, Earth Darts, Flame Weapon, Heat Food, and then here's the 4 that kind of break down into 3 for 4th Edition because we had Purify Earth, which was kept, Purify Water, which was kept. Then we had Resist Cold as a separate spell from Resist Fire. In 4th edition, we just have Resist Element, where you get to create 5 different spells from that. Does that make sense?
Okay, yes.
For the breakdown?
And I imagine that the Resist Air version of that is the one that would cover cold?
I think so.
Because cold isn't an element the way that fire is.
Agreed. So I think Resist Air would do the Resist Cold part. So
Resist Cold usually, cold is usually, it could be either air or water, I guess. I don't know. I know that there are keywords in spells that basically indicate which one cold is associated with, and I don't remember what they are off the top of my head.
Fair. Yeah, I'd go with water myself just because you had Purify Earth, Purify Water, Resist Cold, I would say therefore Ice, and then Resist Fire. So I think it's something along those lines. Because it sounds like it would do 4 of the elements that way. I don't know. Maybe it was air. Yeah.
It looks like cold is associated with water just based at looking at the keywords of Iceland, which is water/cold.
Yeah, gotcha. So then we get to second circle, where we have air mattress in classic and air mattress in 4th edition. We have icy surface in classic and icy surface in 4th edition. We have shield willow and slow metal weapon in classic edition, which is just now slow weapon in 4th edition. So we're good there. And I think that Hunter's sense got tweaked a little bit and modified to be Mantle of the Woodland Hunter in 2nd circle 4th edition. So I think that worked there. Fingers of Wind basically is now 2nd circle in 4th edition, where it was 3rd circle in classic edition. So some circle shifting happened.
Gotcha.
For other spells. So of the 5 spells in the player's guide, Air Mattress, Fingers of Wind, Icy Surface, Shield Willow, Slow Weapon, 6, Mantle of the Woodland Hunter, done. And all of those were kept from classic. So we're good. So all we have to do now is explain the new ones we have and what happened to them and what happened to the other ones from classic that didn't get transferred over at all. So basically, 1st circle classic edition, Earth Blend, gone. Moon Glow, gone. Plant Talk, gone. Couldn't find any reference to those at all.
So Plant Talk, I think it's a talent now? Like a high circle talent, similar to like there's an Animal Talk talent that Beastmasters get access to, for example. I think Plant Talk there is now a talent. I suspect, again, given what happened with the Shaman spell lists, that Moonglow and
Earthblend,
those may be Shaman spells now instead of Elementalist spells.
Yeah, which, makes sense that we're going to put them in different schools here and there, and I completely understand all of that because that happened quite a bit. In fact, off air, before we started recording, we mentioned that Ignite, when we did the wizard spell breakdown last time, that actually we didn't know where it went. It ended up over here in the Deeper Secrets 1st circle spell list. So that's where it kind of came from.
Yes, Moonglow is a Shaman spell.
Okay.
And it is in Deeper Secrets.
Cool. I like that. So
I do not have Mystic Paths up to check the Shaman spell list for that.
Fair enough. So that takes care of the 1st circle spells for the Elementalist. The 2nd circle spells, there's a lot of them that have now disappeared, and they may be in other schools or to the dustbin of history. Air Mattress kept Billowing Cloak, and that
I think that may have shifted to be Illusionist.
Fair. Boil Water basically moved to third circle in Deeper Secrets, so we won't get to that today. Detect Elementalism Magic, I think, just got moved to a talent, Detect Magic.
There is not a Detect Magic talent. You're confusing it with Dispel Magic.
That's what I'm confusing it with, sorry. And I'm going to get that a lot because I'm trying to compare 2 different versions and 3 different books.
I think the idea of a Detect Magic spell in Earth Dawn of any flavor doesn't really work because you've got Astral Sight, which is really what allows you to detect and study magic.
Makes sense.
And that coupled with Pattern Craft, like within the 4th edition design paradigm of that, you don't need to have a spell to detect magic. That feels a very D&D-ism.
Fair.
Because that was something that was added in either Manual of Mystic Secrets or Arcane Mysteries in 1st edition. Those were both later editions.
Absolutely.
And those feel to me like D&D-isms that don't quite fit the way that magic otherwise works.
I'm with you.
In Earth Dawn.
Gotcha.
Personally.
Think of magic.
The way that I envision it.
Yeah, I do not disagree at all. So Flame Strike, 2nd circle classic, moved to 4th circle in Deeper Secrets, so we'll get to that later. Gills, I couldn't find. So if
I believe I believe that's a Shaman spell now.
Fair enough. Hunter Sense, as I said, from 2nd circle classic, got changed to Mantle of the Woodland Hunter, which we will get to. We already got to a while ago. Ice Spear becomes Ice Lance in 3rd circle, so it's in Deeper Secrets. Icy
Hunter's Sense is a Shaman spell. It's in Mystic Paths.
Gotcha. So then, they just tweaked it one for the Elementalist instead to be Mantle of the Woodland Hunter, and Hunter Sense got moved over to Shaman. Icy Surface we kept. Path Home Not sure where that one went, unless it's a shaman spell as well.
Maybe. Gills is a shaman spell now.
Cool.
And the Path Home is a shaman spell.
Gotcha. Shield Willow we kept.
Yeah.
Slow Metal Weapon just became Slow Weapon, which I think is fine since a lot of things are made of wood. So most weapons are the substances from nature in the first place. Small Slayer. Not sure.
That's the one that like summons a like a scorpion or something like that.
Scorpion or a stinger or
a small, small
like that,
venomous.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which would be right up the shaman's alley, I think.
I was going to say, that feels like it would be potentially a shaman spell as well. I don't see it in Mystic Paths. Doesn't look like it. At least not by that name.
Fair. Yeah, so Small Slayer at the moment missing in action. But the last two spells from the classic second circle list, Sterilize Object, got moved to Wizards because it's just sterilized now. And Stick Together, I think, became a reworked version of Great Sticky Vines, and you get it at fourth circle in Deeper Secrets. Okay.
No, Great Sticky Vines is not Stick Together. That is not a reworked.
Gotcha.
They may seem to have similar effects, but it's not a rework.
I was hoping it was a separate spell because I'm like, Stick Together was one of my players' absolute favorites. Just didn't remember anything about it because I don't usually use Elementalist spells, and I've not played an Elementalist, so there's that. So, finally, 13 minutes into the episode, getting to Deeper Secrets. Sorry for all the preamble, folks. We wanted to break this down for you. We have now 10 more spells, 5 in first circle, 5 in second circle, bringing our total to 27. So the Classic Edition had 27 first and second circle spells of all the ones we just listed previously. And now, between the Player's Guide in 4th edition and Deeper Secrets, we're back to 27 first and second circle spells. And really, we've got 16 first circle and 11 second circle. So a lot of first circle choices now. Beginning with Dry and Wet. This is actually brought over from the former Nethermancer.
I was about to say, if you weren't aware, this was a spell that was originally a Nethermancer spell.
Yes.
And it got brought over to be an Elementalist spell. Basically, either soaks an item that is dry or dries out an item that is soaked. It can't affect animated or living targets, but can affect the stuff that they're wearing. Pretty straightforward. Super handy, actually, in some regards, if you're doing like outside wilderness adventuring or anything, especially if you're going to be in an area where hypothermia is a potential concern, because being wet in that kind of situation can exacerbate that sort of thing. If you're going to be exploring an area like, for example, the mist swamps, which are notorious because of the humidity and stuff in the air causing problems with things that you might bring in there, having dry and wet to like dry them out and to preserve things very well could be handy. It has the caveat of it can't affect living targets, mainly to prevent it being used as an easy way of grounding windlings. Because I don't think the original version of the spell specified that.
It did not. Yeah, that doesn't ring a bell to me at all.
It's got some nice uses. Again, like a lot of the spells that we're going to encounter here in the lower circles, it is useful in certain circumstances, but was not something that necessarily seemed to be definitive in terms of the Elementalist kit.
Yeah. Well, and
nice one of the other things to just kind of talk about in general with the spell changes is that Elementalist and Nethermancer, especially in 4th edition, introduced a whole bunch of these sort of summoning adjacent spells like Mantle of the Woodland Hunter that were sort of completely new when it comes to that design. So there were more spells maybe that didn't make it over originally because of that new design space that was opened up.
Agreed. So next we have Ignite, which again was brought over from the Wizard's kit and is now in the Elementalist's field. Zero thread spell as well.
Yes, this one actually also does cause damage, where the original version of it didn't. It is low damage. It's Elementalist Circle is the step. There's no bonus to it or anything like that. So this isn't something that unlike Flame Flash,
yes,
which does do a little bit more damage, the damage is more kind of just incidental because it's reduced by physical armor, This is not something generally that you will use to actually damage someone directly. You are mainly going to be using it to set things on fire.
Yeah, because it's ignite. And that's what you do. Fire good in this case.
If used against a living target, then it does also provide a little bit of a penalty to an action as kind of like the distraction of them having themselves be set on fire, however briefly and for however little damage. And it's a minor penalty. It's not like a big whole thing.
No, not a big deal. But I do tend to find being set on fire a little distracting. That's just me. That's just me. Next up is Repair, which comes actually from the Third Circle Classic Edition. So it got shoved up into First Circle now. So it's a little bit easier. You get it a little bit earlier in your progression than you used to.
What this does is similar to some of the reworkings of other spells. Rather than just repairing an object, it provides a bonus to attempts made to repair an object. So it is kind of being an enhancement, a buff spell, but similar to like Crunch Climb or things like that provide a bonus to another test, which is always something that is relatively useful to have. Whereas in some cases, like, were not necessarily quite so handy beyond a certain point because they were more of a binary effect.
Fair enough. So the newest, those are 3 zero-thread spells right out of the gate from Magic Deeper Secrets in First Circle. Next up is Room Temperature. I couldn't find this anywhere, so this one sounds new.
This is not entirely new. It's a new name for the spell. There was a spell, and I can't recall the name of it now off the top of my head, that allowed you to change the temperature.
Okay.
It might have been just called Temperature. I don't know. It feels like an effect that has been tweaked somewhat from a previously existing spell.
Fair.
And I can't find it right now off the top of my head because it's
That's
not
fine.
called Temperature.
I just like the fact that it uses fire and water to either make it uncomfortably hot, uncomfortably cold, or perfect temperature. So I think if you wanted to, you could make this into a sauna. If you had the right room and this Elementalist with you with room temperature in his kit, you could actually make a sauna to help recover after a long fight or long travel. It doesn't actually provide you any benefits on healing or anything like that, getting your recovery tests done, but I think it'd just be a nice little story wrinkle to throw in there.
Anyway, okay, sorry. I'm scanning the list of spells, and Drastic Temperature.
Oh,
I think.
Where was that from?
That is a 6th Circle Elementalist spell, causes a radical change in ambient temperature. That one is a little bit more dramatic.
Yes. So I think it was just tweaked to be First Circle and a little bit less effective.
Because the Drastic Temperature is more of an area effect type of damage spell.
Gotcha.
Rises the temperature either above the boiling point of water or below the freezing point of water at the magician's discretion. Takes about 30 seconds to reach the final level. Water will freeze or boil on the 3rd round of the spell. Each round thereafter that a character is caught in or passes through the effect, the magician makes an effect test to determine how much damage is inflicted, because it is like an incredibly dramatic and drastic
It's a very quick change. That's going to be affecting some things.
Room temperature is not that severe.
No.
It is not a damaging spell. It is one that is intended more to mitigate the effects of extremes of heat or cold that you might be dealing with. Again, very handy if you're going to be doing like wilderness exploration up in the high mountains or in an area like the Badlands or any place else where frostbite, heat stroke, anything along those lines is a potential danger. Having this as something that you can use to control the temperature can come in handy as just a survival skill.
Yeah, so I like the fact that there's a lower level version of it. We'll see if Drastic Temperature maintains its 6th Circle status in Deeper Secrets. So the last of the new, reworked, rehashed, reintroduced First Circle spells in Deeper Secrets is Smoke Cloud. This is from the Third Circle Classic Edition. So again, a bunch of these spells got moved up a couple of circles to First Circle now. So Smoke Cloud returns as 1 thread.
Yes. This creates a cloud of obscuring smoke. It is similar in some ways to Ethereal Darkness. The spellcaster can see and act normally within the area, but others are harried.
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't have quite the same effect as Ethereal Darkness, which gives imposes like full blindness penalties. But it does apply penalties to certain tests and actions while they are in it.
Yeah, harried and partially blind. I can see. Yeah, it's just a smoke bomb. So, yeah.
And, it does have the sort of side effect of like strong wind or breeze has a potential of dispelling it.
Yeah, but still very useful and right up the Elementalist alley. No lie. So those are the 5: dry and wet, ignite, repair, room temperature, and smoke cloud. 2 of them got moved up from 3rd circle. 1 got moved over from Nethermancer. 1 got moved over from Wizard. So take those and run. The remaining 5 spells from 2nd circle, 4th edition, Deeper Secrets. Is that enough diagramming where they came from for you? First one up, 2nd circle, Balloons of Mist, a 2-thread spell.
Yeah, this creates balloons that can lift things.
Yeah, this is new to me.
It basically creates a thing that can lift up to 200 pounds, and the caster can concentrate to kind of move them around slowly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah, if you've got Fingers of Wind, then you can definitely move this stuff around. And, Fingers of Wind is also a 2nd circle spell. So if you've got Balloons of Mist and Fingers of Wind, you can lift things and move them wherever you'd like to move them, as long as you're fairly accurate with that. So, yeah, 6.
It's a nice little spell.
Yeah, it's handy. It's an air-based spell, obviously. 2nd circle, we get back to Fire Whip, which actually was from the 4th circle in Classic. So this got moved up 2 whole circles to 2nd circle for you. 1-thread spell.
Yeah, and I think probably the damage step got dropped down a little bit. I'm obviously not comparing the exact figures or whatnot.
Nope.
But this creates a damaging whip of fire that the wielder can use to attack either with melee weapons or spell casting, their choice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's treated as a normal weapon for the purposes of like attacks and damage and whatnot. So it's essentially magically summoning a melee weapon that you can use to deal fire damage and potentially entangle the target and things like that. So it's nice.
Fire Whip, just beautiful and great visuals for anybody who's playing Theater of the Mind. So next up is Grounding, which also came from the 3rd circle in Classic. So this is a rehash earlier circle spell to get now that it's in 2nd circle.
This is a spell that gives the target bonuses to avoid getting knocked down, as well as some other benefits. It does come with the penalty, unfortunately, of having the target's movement rate, but any abilities that would move or try and move or lift the target require an additional success. So it's basically kind of anchoring the target of the spell to the ground and making it more difficult to sort of physically move them in any kind of dramatic fashion.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's those like you're planting yourself and just feeling a deeper connection with the earth, like you've got a stake through your foot. Just, you're not going to move me much. So I like that one. Liquid Arrow makes a return from 4th circle Classic Edition, now to 2nd circle as well. 0-thread spell. There's a lot of 0-thread spells in 2nd circle for Elementalists.
This one is a pretty straightforward damaging attack. It doesn't have any kind of additional effect, but it just creates a arrow of water.
Yes.
That fires towards the target and deals damage.
Yeah. No, I remember one of my players using this one, liking it a lot. So I'm pretty sure that anybody else who is missing its presence will be very happy it returned now and is available at 2nd circle and not 4th. So.
And one of the things that, and again, I think the damage step was probably tweaked downward a little bit because with the reduction in the circle.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we see that you will see with the Elementalist spells in Deeper Secrets is that there is a little bit of a wider variety of damage dealing spells in terms of what element that they interact with or are responsible for.
Yeah, I agree.
To give a little bit more variety and options, like if you're going against enemies that have weaknesses or resistances against certain elemental types, then you can use the appropriate spell to affect them more heavily or whatever.
Agreed. So the last one we have is a 2-thread spell, and it does make its triumphant return from 3rd circle Classic Edition now to 2nd circle 4th edition. Throne of Air.
Yes. This creates a throne of air, sort of a magical cushion of sorts, a chair made of wind that the caster sits in and rides on. It does not confer full flight, but it does sort of have them effectively like hovering over the ground, a little distance above the ground, so that they are not actually walking on the ground or anything like that. It does provide a bonus to avoid blow tests while seated. Is a movement rate equivalent to your standard human orc, movement rate of 12. So it's not significantly faster, but it is a neat little effect that comes along.
Yeah, it just makes it easier to rest instead of, getting tired hiking all day long, because the duration is, rank minutes. You can at least do something like this. But this reminds me of the Farscape character, the little tiny Muppet lizard guy who was always in his floating throne. And so that's what I was
Rigel
too. Rigel, thank you. So it's one of those, you can't fly, as you said. You can't do many other things. So it's just like his chair. That's all you can do. It floats along. It doesn't do anything else special, except in this case, like you said, +2 to avoid blow tests. Doesn't hurt. So, things like that. But that pretty much is our 5 new first circle spells or 5 new second circle spells. Anything that you could see, they're all welcome back. I know that. But anything you can see supplanting your first circle choices or second circle choices from the player's guide?
Smoke Cloud is kind of cool.
Yeah.
As a first circle spell, that's one that I would potentially consider having in my starting selection.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the benefits that it can provide in terms of cover and obscuring and things like that. As a first circle spell, it can come in handy. And then, honestly, second circle, Fire Whip, Grounding, and Liquid Arrow are all pretty decent.
Yeah.
Whether I would take any of those over the regular second circle list in the player's guide, I would need to sort of compare directly.
Fair.
And it would depend, again, in part, at like what other characters are in the group and what might need to be covered and capabilities and things like that. I mean, if it was going to be a more wilderness expedition type game, then looking at things like dry and wet or room temperature or balloons of mist that might be helpful in dealing with the kinds of trouble and obstacles that you will run into in those environments, then maybe that's something to keep in mind as well. But just broadly, those 4, Smoke Cloud, Fire Whip, Grounding, and Liquid Arrow, all seem to have pretty broad utility and are ones that I would look at as early choices for an Elementalist.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. I think Throne of Air would be incredibly useful for wilderness, especially if you're trying to sneak up on things. That way you're never touching the ground and making noises.
Yeah.
That's what I'd use that one for.
That is a possibility. The difficulty with Throne of Air is that it is a self-cast spell.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that you would typically have an Elementalist that is going to be the one kind of doing that sneaking up situation, because they wouldn't be able to give that advantage to other members of the group.
Yeah.
I think the biggest advantage to Throne of Air is for the Elementalist to overcome certain environmental obstacles where they wouldn't want to be walking on stuff, but also the little bonus that it provides to avoid blow. While Elementalists are the sort of the most physical of the spellcaster disciplines, having that bonus to avoid blow can be handy because they may not have a whole lot of other defensive options.
Yeah. I already know the question somebody's going to email us with is, if I cast Throne of Air myself, can somebody sit on my lap and the spell still works? Now, a Windling, I don't think would be weight encumbrance where it would do that. But if you're an Obsidian Elementalist, obviously it works just for you, but it doesn't have a weight limit. So I know it's the whole letter of the law, spirit of the law.
Yeah, I mean, in that situation, I would probably... It doesn't provide any kind of additional carrying capacity.
Yeah.
And so I would probably just say, can you normally carry whatever is there without being encumbered?
Fair.
And so in most cases, you're probably not going to be able to carry another person with you.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that I'm willing to leave to game masters. But where the spell doesn't specifically indicate that it provides any kind of enhanced carrying capacity, then what you may want to do in that situation is also look at Balloons of Mist, because that could pick somebody up and you can sort of like move along with them being floated through the air as well.
Yeah, because that'll move somebody else.
The drawback being that Throne of Air doesn't really allow you to fly, so it wouldn't, say, allow you to get over a chasm or something like that, the way that Balloons of Mist actually would. But yeah, like I could see some potentially creative uses for stuff like that.
Yeah, because I think, for Balloons of Mist, you can weave in a few extra threads, because every extra thread is an extra 50 pounds.
Right.
So if you just 6 balloons.
It summons 6 balloons. Each balloon can carry up to 200 pounds. Mm-hmm. And you can use multiple balloons to carry a single thing if it's over that weight limit.
Yes. So that's the whole thing, is if you can convince the player, you really should get Balloons of Mist and Throne of Air. You, the spellcaster, can use Throne of Air, but you can put Balloons of Mist on other things and other people.
Yeah, maybe. Again, that like I don't want to make a broad blanket
Fair
statement about that, because the utility of either of those will depend largely on what's going on and what the environment is and what you're trying to accomplish and things like that.
Yeah.
If the thought is, oh, hey, we can have everybody just kind of drifting along through the air. Well, yeah, but the spells only have rank minutes as their effect.
Yeah.
This is not the case of, oh, we're all going to be like kind of carried along.
No.
And if you're dealing with an obstacle, there are obstacles that Balloons of Mist will help you get by that Throne of Air will be no good for, and stuff like that. So it would largely be circumstantial from my point of view.
Oh no, totally. They each have their own use. I was just like, I just can see somebody trying to get away with Throne of Air as, can I carry more than just me? So I already saw that email coming, and I wanted to head it off at the pass.
I would say, can you normally carry them without being encumbered? Yeah. And if not, then no, you can't.
There.
I wouldn't have a problem with a dwarf or a human or whatever elementalist using Throne of Air and having a windling hitching a ride on their shoulder, but
exactly. Yeah,
it doesn't give you any kind of bonus carrying capacity.
No. Want to double check? As I said, I saw that coming up in advance. some of the games I've played before, I'm like, that I can see a creative use of that spell. So could so see that one. Anything else about?
If the spell doesn't really like have anything in the description that would indicate that there's anything like that, then probably not.
Fair enough. No, if it doesn't,
don't make up stuff that the spell can do that the spell doesn't say it can do.
It's kind of like the U-turn sign. If it doesn't say you can't, then you can. If it doesn't say you can, then you can't.
Look, it is impossible for us to write any kind of rules to rule out any kind of potentially edge case broken or abusive behavior that somebody might bring into effect there. It does what it says. And if you as a GM want to allow something like that, just keep in mind what that might have in terms of a long-term effect on what is possible in your game.
Yes. Because otherwise you're getting into like deep legalese about spell description, and that's just going to get boring.
Yeah.
And not worth it. So anything else about the reworked, brought up into earlier circles, first and second circle spells from Deeper Secrets?
No, not really. Like we're going to see, I think, with the others in here, there are going to be a couple of new cases. There are going to be some reworks of spells that show up. But these are going to be, I think, broadly speaking, useful utility and like second tier type spells. Not that they're bad. They're just not necessarily quite as iconic, say, as the ones that were chosen to go into
Player's Guide,
the core book.
Yeah, fair enough. Nope, all good. I like the addition of all of these, the reintroduction of all of these, because we're now back to 27 that we had in Classic Edition. So they all got put in their proper spot, damage and effects and all that fun stuff. But they all had to be reworked for all the extra threads you can now weave to them. So that's why they took so long to get done. So, folks, if you have any questions for us, and not the one about Throne of Air, handled, solved, answered, done, please drop us a line at edsgpodcast@gmail.com. And until next time, go find your creative use of spells for your legend.
Good night, everybody.